team up here to put some covering for you. G! Cover entrance!
When our first battle group deployed to Iraq, there was one Arabic speaker. He was an Australian Army captain, and he'll forgive me if I say he wasn't the best Arabic speaker in the world. We were very ill prepared.
This is the story of the Iraqis who filled that gap, the interpreters.
If you can't communicate with the objective, the people, it's not worth doing. So the key is interpreters.
It's the story of the terror unleashed on them because they helped the Australians. In the first of a three-part series, they tell of the list, how militia listed locals who worked with Australian troops for execution, then put the list into action in some terrifying cases Australians have never been told about.
I've been told you'll be killed, and killing me is just like killing an ant with your shoes. They can ask any kid in the street and give him a gun and tell him, go take out that guy.
Part 2, the secret mission to get them out. We see the pictures of their escape kept hidden until now.
I lied to my mom. I didn't tell her that I'm going forever to Israel. I told her I'm going to study and then come back in one year only.
And in the final part, how they fared in the country they fled to.
I'm going back.
To Iraq?
Yeah.
Friends, the Prime Minister of Australia, Kevin Rudd.
Kevin Rudd's promise to withdraw Australian forces from the Iraq conflict helped him win government late in 2007. The following year, 565 troops would come home. Most had been helping secure 2 southern provinces around the cities of Samoa and Nasiriyah.
The end of another chapter in Australia's proud military history.
But what about the Iraqis who'd worked with the Australians? More than 400 of them since the war began.
My view was, well, gee, they've helped us, we should help them.
For 5 of the 6 years Australian troops were in Iraq, this man was in charge of the army. Now retired Lieutenant General Peter Lay lectures on security at the University of Canberra, on topics like what it takes to win a modern war.
We say these days you're probably better armed with a degree in anthropology than an assault rifle. It's not territory, it's about mind space. It's about talking to people and convincing them that there's another way of doing things. And an interpreter takes you to their minds.
In a series of secret flights from Talil and Baghdad, Defence extracted many of Australia's local employees, most interpreters, and their families. The department documented the hidden mission with hours of video and more than 300 still images. In the years since, it has refused to release the material, until this Freedom of Information application. Now we can see the pictures.
To me, this was repaying a debt. They had been a very important part of our success, and if they needed a hand, I think we needed to help them, and I'm very pleased that we did.
In just 4 months, 422 people vanished from their Iraqi communities and turned up in suburban Australia.
I felt with joy, to be honest. Yeah, I never thought that I would be out of Iraq.
Mohammed Marsan, 32, is studying for his Masters in Translation at Melbourne's RMIT, building on the skills from almost 2 years interpreting for the Australians. Could you go back now?
Maybe not now.
Why not?
Yeah, because security is not fully stable now in Iraq.
Dandenong, on Melbourne's eastern fringe, More than 1/4 of the interpreters' group settled here. That was almost 3 years ago, yet their fear of Iraq has barely shifted.
In Iraq, when you say interpreter, it doesn't mean any academic thing. No, it means for them, for the bad people, it means spy or disloyal or
Traitor.
Traitor. Yeah, that's correct.
Many interpreters you'll meet asked us to hide their faces and use only their nicknames, Ahmed and Abdullah among them.
As a target, we are number one.
And you still believe you're that today?
Yeah, I still believe it.
He told us about a leaked intelligence report on the confessions of a captured insurgent. The man had revealed how militias plotting to undermine the Australians had drawn up 2 execution lists.
The first list for Iraqi interpreters and the second list for the Iraqi contractor who's dealing with the Australian forces, who's built the schools or any project. I think 100% I will die, but it's just a time issue.
You would be killed, murdered.
Yeah. Me and my family.
As you'll see, by the time Kevin Rudd offered the interpreters a way out, that death list was more progressed than Australians have ever been told about. On the very first of those secret flights out of southern Iraq was Haider Magtouf.
I was happy that time. I was happy.
The young telecommunications engineer turned interpreter could finally believe he'd outrun the killers of Iraq.
They had like a list of all the interpreters' names. So they were trying to kill everybody in this list. My name was included in this list.
Do you think the security threat against them was that great?
Oh, no doubt it was that great. I'm not sure who kept the death list, but I'm sure that people had the intent to kill them if they could.
Now in Sydney, Haider reflects on what drove him from his hometown Nasiriyah. One day he walked out of a small shop on his way to work with the Australians. In that instant, his country turned on him.
They started shooting me.
Firing at you?
Firing at me when I was walking towards my car.
In terror, on his belly, he crawled back towards the shop for cover. Then it dawned on him who'd phoned the militia to set up his killing, the shopkeeper.
I realized they told them that one of the interpreters, he's buying the cigarette now. And
the shop owner?
Yeah. The shopper was like an agent.
Informant?
Yes. So he was reporting everything to them. Yeah, and many interpreters they killed in that time.
And with each attack, fear among the Australian interpreters, like father of 4 Sahib Muhammad, became intense.
Because we are easy to kill. For us, we're living in houses in the middle of militia. My neighbor is one of the militia. Killing me is just like killing an ant with your shoes. I'm nothing there for them. Killing me is so easy.
Then one incident stoked the fear so much it all but paralysed the Australian operation. It involved a popular interpreter and second-year chemistry student, Ali Jabbar.
He was on the list. For some reason, he was on the top of the list. I don't know why. He was young. He was just a kid.
Ali Jabbar's family were among about 50 Iraqis on those secret flights out to safety who settled in Adelaide.
The only army he loves is the Australian Army. He kept the flags in his room in everywhere.
The Australian flag?
Yeah.
Talking about Ali is still tough for his sister Marwa and their dad.
I was at a wedding party when they called and told me to come to the hospital.
Samoa, September 23rd, 2006. Ali's family says it was cleric Muqtada al-Sadr's feared Mahdi army that ordered the drive-by attack. 4 killers in a car, 3 bullets, 1 young ADF interpreter dead.
Like civilian car just pull over beside him, then 2 guys like open the fire on him, then he's gone.
Ali Jabbar was 21.
I suffer most here in Australia when I remember him.
It was the most shocking moment in my life. I lost my mom, but I expect that she will die because she got cancer. But for my brother, I don't believe that he's died. I just believe that he's like went somewhere like for a different country and he will come back.
What happened next was killing Ali Jabbar. Stalin didn't go in Samao City for a couple months. They couldn't.
After Ali Jabbar was killed?
Yeah, they couldn't go in Samao City. They stopped everything.
Yet on Ali Jabbar's execution, on the terror it triggered among the families of Australian employed translators, on the impact it had at the time on our army's ability to function in southern Iraq, the Defence Force said nothing.
I don't recall the specific situation, but I think it would have had a very strong impact.
The other translator and interpreter stopped working for 2 months. They can't. Some of them actually ran away to another city. Some of them hide in their houses. They were hiding for a month or a month and a half.
Now, 4.5 years on, in a city where Ali Jabbar might have lived, his younger sister can still see him.
It's like he's still alive for me. I have a lot of dreams that... okay, I can't.
Really?
A lot. And every time I feel that he will come back. But that's life. I try to accept it, but I'm trying.
Eight years since Saddam fled. 8 years of bloodshed.
Iraq was losing 2,000 civilians killed a week.
Australian Jim Molan viewed the Iraq War from the very top.
The situation in Iraq is so much more stable now than it was, but for the next 20 years there are going to be very strange people wandering around trying to kill others.
Jim Molan had been an interpreter himself in a past job as defence attaché in Jakarta. By 2004, he was Chief of Operations for the multinational force, overseeing 300,000 coalition troops in Iraq, and with his own personal translator, Ali.
We paid him well. He was on our side. He's a fine fellow. It's just that his English wasn't very good.
Australian troops navigated Iraq's bloodbath without suffering a single combat death.
They cannot reach a Australian soldier. They cannot reach a Australian officer, but they can reach me.
Taji, north of Baghdad, once a base for Saddam's tanks and his elite Republican Guard, then US forces. By the end of 2005, an Australian Army training team had completed a 6-month rotation here and was handing on to American trainers.
Taji was more dangerous. I think they took more rocket attacks.
Ahmed, as he asked us to call him, once fought in Saddam's special forces, skills he then used for the coalition, as well as interpreting for Australia. He and 3 of his colleagues from Taji told us about simply leaving work.
After 2 meters from the gates of the base,
you are a target. Yeah.
You are a target, there is nothing.
And how in mid-November 2005, this roll of the dice every time they left Taji's South Gate caught up with them.
I don't think anyone knows about it.
We were leaving from the camp to take 2 days vacation from our job. We left the camp.
Lieutenant Colonel Warren Jolly had been Australia's commander in Taji. His personal interpreter, the senior translator for the Australians, was this man, Matham. On that November day, Matham was the front passenger in the first of two cars. 31 years old, his wife 7 months pregnant with their second child.
A car pulled beside them and opened fire.
The killers shower Matham's car with gunfire.
He actually got hit by 4 shots, 4 bullets, one in his hand, neck, back, and his head.
I won't forget that till last day of my life. I saw him laying down on the front chair in the car. He was bleeding. I tried to speak to him. There was no answer.
Terror struck. The interpreters haul him into their second car, unaware they're starting a marathon of frustration, rushing from hospital to hospital, begging for the care needed to save him.
The doctors say we can't do anything for him here. Take him to another hospital, bigger hospital.
Oh yeah, he had no treatment at all.
One of the interpreters, his shirt soaked in Matham's blood, pleads with local police to help them. Instead, the Iraqi officer searches him and finds his Taji pass.
They say, what's this? You are not a police, you are not army, you are interpreter, you are a traitor working for the occupation. Take him to the prison. He asked one of his sergeants, take him to prison.
He tried to put you in jail.
He said, cuff him and take this bastard to prison. I said, why? I didn't do anything wrong. I am a victim here. He said, no, you are not a victim. You are a traitor. So I tell him, you have 2 options, either to go to prison or walk away now.
And this is as you're pleading for the life of your friend.
Right. Yes.
It's a life-changing point for me. For me, it was a life-changing point. We tried to bring him back to the base, but they said we can't take a case like that. He has to go to the green zone.
So they pin their hopes on the coalition medical care behind the security perimeters of Baghdad's green zone. After all, they work for the coalition.
Take 5 hours from 7 o'clock or 7 p.m. till midnight to get the permission to transport him to the green zone.
And all that time I was on contact with the coalition forces, tried to send the convoy, tried to send the Black Hawk, anything, nothing. They didn't do anything to help out.
The coalition?
The coalition, yeah. It's, yeah, it was a life-changing point.
According to Ahmed, it's 9 hours after the shooting when he finally hands the critically wounded interpreter to a medical team at the Green Zone's main security gate. Half an hour later, they phone him. Matham is dead. If the Australians had intervened at that time and said, we need this person to get to a hospital quickly, what would have happened?
We don't know, because
probably he's still alive. I don't know.
He'd probably still be alive.
Yeah. It was never a heartless activity, but I don't know. None of us know the details. It's never simple. It's never simple, and these problems in war are never simple.
Well, I think it is a situation of war, that there are only certain things that you can do. You can prepare for many eventualities, but you can't prepare for them all. As they say, shit happens. And I guess in this situation it happened, and there wasn't the ability to support them.
5 weeks later, in a Taji dining hall, it's Christmas Day. The interpreters meet, abandoned, bitter, scared. But Iraq is about to turn its fury on them again, on this interpreter, Mahdi.
He went with his family by his car to get, I think, bread from a bakery in his neighborhood. And as soon as he got off from his car, they shot him dead in front of the kids.
As I was told that, you know, the wife was screaming, the kids were screaming, but no one did anything. Only later on they said that some guy came from the street and had a talk with the family and managed to move the car and lift the body.
We asked the Defence Department how many interpreters who worked with the Australians in Iraq were killed. The department told us they simply don't know. Do you know or recall how many interpreters were killed in that time?
No.
And why were Matham and Mahdi targeted?
Because they're working with the coalition forces and the Australian forces.
No doubt.
No doubt, no, nothing else.
Maytham's widow and 2 young children were aboard one of those secret flights out of Iraq that we examine in our next program. They're now living in Australia. And Mahdi's family? His colleagues believe they were never approached to make the trip. The Australians had lost contact with them. The last the Baghdad interpreters remember is of a family grieving.
I remember his wife saying that his son is still crying many days for that, because it's not an easy thing to watch your father killed in front of your eyes.
Next, how late can you leave telling the family they're all about to flee to the other side of the world? Flight for Life, Part 2 of Patriots and Traitors.